Yeah. I'll call them into order. About 7:05 according to my watch. And the first item then on the agenda are the minutes of July 14th, 2020. I need a motion.
Move we accept the minutes subject to modification.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Page one. On page one, there's one typographical error on others. Others present. Hank Harder is the name of the Brigadier General, not Hunter. And that is also true on page 2, under number 5, the second paragraph, where it identifies the two people from the National Guard. Anything else on page 1? Page 2. Page 3. And page 4. I think there was under the action following executive session, it doesn't mention that the executive session ended at 9:12 p.m.
Okay.
Hearing no other corrections, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of July 14th, 2020, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, and that's right. And Jeff is abstaining because he wasn't here.
Correct.
So we have 3-0-1. It's now the time for public comment. If anyone has any of the public has any comment to make regarding any issue that we have either on the agenda or that they have in mind. If there's anyone on the internet or the Zoom connection, this is your time.
Terry, I don't see anyone who'd like to speak now. I know a number of folks are tuned in for the comprehensive plan hearing later on, and I expect the Catamount Forest Amendment as well.
Oh, good. Okay. Then we'll move on if they're ready. The Route 2A Industrial Avenue intersection improvements. Bruce Hoare was going to be on, I believe, as well as Tom Bilodeau from Green International Company and an AOT representative, Michael LaCroix.
Yep, I see them all here, Terry. They'll be joining us in just a moment.
All right, we have the Hollywood Squares are here, and we want to kick this off with just introducing the subject.
Sure. I came outside so he wouldn't bother. He still barks. Anyway, let's see. This is about the intersection improvements that are going to happen at Mountain View and Industrial Ave. The state's putting it together. And you have a memo from me on that. And we have Mike and Tom, right? Both joining us tonight.
Yep.
So I'll let them go through what the project's about.
Yes, thanks, Bruce. For those who don't know me, Michael LaCroix, I'm the project manager for VTrans for the 2A project. And thanks for having us. We just wanted to just give the select board a brief update on where we are project-wise. And then we also wanted to just discuss real briefly about one of the proposed construction phases may require some potential lane disruptions on Mountain View. So we kind of wanted to run some of those ideas by the select board and maybe get some sort of consensus or blessing, if you will, regarding what we would like to do there. So I have with me tonight Tom Bigelow from Green International. They are V-Trans design consultant for the 2A project. So we have just a quick handful of slides tonight to run by you guys, and I'll let Tom take it away.
Yes, thank you, Mike. And I'm just going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation for ease of kind of presenting some of these options here. So as Mike said, my name is Tom Bigelow from Green International. I'm the project manager with a design consultant working for V-Trans on this project. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the project and where it is and where it's located, but for anyone of the board or anyone in the audience that's not, the project is on Vermont Route 2A. It's reconstruction and box widening of Route 2A. It'll start just south of Meadow Run Road and extend about a half mile up to River Cove Road, and will match into the improvements that were recently completed between River Cove Road, including the new signal at James Brown Drive and further north towards Essex Junction. The project also includes about 600 feet of widening and reconstruction on Industrial Avenue and about 500 feet of widening and reconstruction on Mountain View Road, and would reconstruct the signal at the intersection. We did come in front of the board, I believe it was either in late 2018 or very early 2019, and kind of present an update. So we wanted to give you an update as far as where what we've done since then, and what the schedule looks like going forward. So in February 2019, we did conduct a 502 hearing, a public hearing at the Williston Town Hall. We have subsequently submitted preliminary plans to V-Trans in November 2019. Those have been under review and reviewed, and we're currently progressing the design based off that review. You may have seen out there over the last month or few weeks or so, some markings being done out in the road and some test pits. Those are some surface utility investigations, locating the existing utilities, both where they are on the road and how deep they are. Those should be wrapping up soon if they are not already completed this week. We've also been working on the environmental permitting. Those are also going in very soon, both for stormwater permitting, erosion control, and wetlands. And we're moving towards a revised preliminary plans in September of this year, which will then kick off the right-of-way process that we hope to start the process of acquiring right-of-way in late fall of this year. That can be sometimes a lengthy process, so that we anticipate that taking about 2 years, so that wrapping up in about fall 2022, with final plans and contract plans being developed over the winter and early spring of 2023, advertising for construction in either late spring or early summer of 2023, and ultimately getting the contractor on board that summer with a approximate construction duration of about 2 construction seasons to complete the project. So as Mike said, what we're really here tonight for is a matter regarding traffic control and maintenance of traffic during construction. And just to orient yourself to this page, this is Vermont Route 2A. This is pointing directly north. So Essex Junction is to your north, Taft's Corner is to your south. Industrial Avenue is here on the left side of the page, and Mountain View Road is on the right side of the page. What we've found, one of the more challenging aspects has been this section of Mountain View Road and maintaining traffic along Mountain View. It is, right now it's 2-lane road, 1 lane in each direction. So it doesn't really give a whole lot of room for both traffic to be maintained while also reconstructing the road and giving the contractor some room to work. So we've developed really two options, which we are going to be presenting to the board tonight to get some feedback and input. And we've talked extensively with V-Trans about this. We also had a meeting with both Bruce and Lisa with the Department of Public Works to go over the options with them and obtain some of their feedback. And they asked us to present them to you as well tonight. So the first option is basically maintaining 2 lanes of traffic, 1 lane in each direction, currently as is today, while providing a little bit of room for the contractor to work. It would be the smallest disruption to the existing traffic patterns and emergency vehicles when compared to our other option, which we'll get to. And no detour is required. So you'd still have 2 lanes of traffic, 1 lane in each direction at all times. A temporary roadway or widening would be needed on both the south side of Mountain View Road and Industrial Avenue to get all the lanes to line up across the intersection, which will require additional right-of-way acquisitions when you compare it to our other option. The roadway would be within about 40 feet of some properties, and utility poles would have to be within about 30 feet of the nearest residence. I believe that's on the corner of Mountain View Road there. And just to note with the utility poles, because we do need to provide some extra widening of the roadway if we went with this option, the utility poles, that means they have to be relocated even further out. And the utility companies really won't come back to relocate a pole a second time. So not only are we requiring temporary rights for the roadway, we also have to acquire additional permanent utility rights for those poles to be relocated and then maintained over time, even after the project is completed. This would come with a tighter work zone. While doable for the contractor, they can work with it and around it. That does lend itself to a longer construction duration, which for this phase of the project, not the project as a whole, but this phase of the project, we would anticipate about 4 to 6 weeks to do the reconstruction and get the road back together to a drivable surface before they place the finished coat of asphalt. Now, option 2 would provide one-way traffic with a detour. When we compare it to option 1, the permanent and temporary rights on Mountain View Road and Industrial Avenue, they're still required, but they're reduced. The temporary widening on the south side of Industrial Avenue would not be needed under this option. We do still need to provide some temporary widening on Mountain View Road because that road, as I said, is narrow, so there's no way around some temporary widening. But again, it is reduced, and we still need to relocate utility poles, but they would be approximately, the roadway would be about 50 feet from the nearest residence, and the utility poles would be about 40 feet from the nearest residence. So we're basically able to bring in those construction and utility limits by about 10 feet when you compare it to with the first option. It allows us for a larger work zone, which will speed up construction, as we hope, and we anticipate about 3 to 4 weeks if this option were advanced. And there is an existing maintenance and finance agreement between V-Trans and the town, and we believe that would have to be slightly modified potentially, and Mike can probably speak a little bit more to that towards the end of the presentation. And as far as the detour route and some more details about the detour, what it would do is it would maintain eastbound traffic on Mountain View Road, and what would be detoured is the westbound traffic. And we would do this during off-peak hours, so not during the rush hour, during morning rush hour, or during the afternoon rush on the way home. It would really be restricted to between 9 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. And like I said, the morning rush hour, two-way traffic would be restored by the contractor for those times. Now I have a graphic that shows the detour route itself. These are the project's limits right here, the same limits that I showed previously. And the detour route would basically start here at Trinity Drive, and it would extend down Mountain View Road past Redmond Road, which I'll discuss in a little bit more detail, onto Old Stage Road, which is a Class 3 town highway. Mountain View Road is, of course, a Class 2 town highway. And then the detour would continue from Old Stage Road down US Route 2, which is a VTrans maintained roadway, and up to Taft's Corner. And then you would get back to the main intersection using Route 2A as you head on up towards Essex. The estimated mileage is about 3.8 miles around, and it's about 7 minutes of travel time. I had mentioned Redmond Road earlier, and we are aware that the Chittenden Solid Waste District has their large facility on Redmond Road, and that Mountain View Road is has a restriction as you head east, a truck restriction, as you head east for anyone heading towards that facility or leaving that facility, rather, as well. So when this detour is implemented during that off-peak 9 to 3:30 time, obviously any trucks that are heading to or from that facility, that restriction will basically need to be lifted during that time, during that 3 to 4 week time that we're anticipating for the duration of this phase, if this was the one that we ultimately chose to go with. So did want to, of course, mention that, as that is an important piece where those trucks will be traveling on town highways for that time. So with that, I guess I could turn it back over to Mike with any other comments, and then we could open it up to other questions.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So Tom did mention something about the finance and maintenance agreement that the state has entered into the town with for this project, and there's one clause in there that talks about detours, and if the select board, if the town agrees with our proposal to go down to a 1-lane work area for that one particular construction phase, we would probably want to amend the agreement with the town to ensure that the town is properly reimbursed by the state in the event that there is damage to the detour route. So right now the agreement says that we can utilize a town highway for a detour, but there's nothing in there, there's no provision in there that speaks of any sort of financial reimbursement to the town. So we want to make sure that, that you guys are covered in the event. It's unlikely that something would happen, but we definitely want to make sure that the town is covered. So that could be something as simple as, a truck damages a town sign or something on Mountain View. The state would replace that sign, for instance, or there might be some pavement damage or something like that. So it's just a clause that we would probably add just to kind of make sure the town was covered. So that was really the only thing I want to add to that presentation that Tom gave. And then I guess what I would ask is, we're open for some questions and comments on what we proposed tonight. And again, thanks for listening to us.
Thank you very much. A number of us have our favorite intersections, and this happens to be mine because I live in that area. And the people who live on Industrial Avenue, I'm sure, would be happy that there'd be less right of way has to be given up for them. And it looks like it doesn't matter too much. It's going to happen either way. Anybody else have questions, comments, concerns?
Bruce, the town's position is that the second option is the one that's best.
Yeah, I think the second option is the better of the two, for one of the reasons that Terry just stated, taking less right away on Industrial Ave, which is going to put everything closer to the homes that we've already heard from people about. The corner property's ours, but as you move down the street, it'll definitely impact those homes, which are already fairly close to the road. And the permanent taking for the poles is the big reason there. It'll just put the utilities closer to them. Plus the shorter duration, hopefully, of the project. I guess my only concern really is trucks on Old Stage Road while the one-way is in place. I was thinking, though, that we maybe modify that and just try to make it so that cars go down Old Stage Road and the trucks continue down to North Williston Road. Either way, they're going through semi-residential areas. So that's my only concern. The only reason I was thinking about the trucks all the way down to Mountain View is we have the four-way intersection at Williston Road, North Williston. Williston Road, North Williston, which may help move that traffic a little bit more than everybody trying to get out at Old Stage, where it's just a stop sign on Old Stage. But I think the second option is the better of the two.
Thank you.
Other questions? Jeff, you're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
Sorry about that. A couple questions, if you don't mind. I wanted to make sure I understood the concept of the detour. Option 2 is that traffic heading west, i.e. on Mountain View heading towards Route 2A, will not be allowed to continue and will have to turn onto Old Stage Road and Route 2 and continue that way. I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. Traffic going from Route 2A will be allowed to use Mountain View at all times, going from 2A onto Mountain View. So make sure that's correct.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned was the CSWD is potentially an entity that will be affected by this. Have they weighed in on this at all?
We have not contacted them with Green or VTrans, and I'm not sure if Bruce had, but it looks like he was shaking his head no.
Okay.
No, I haven't spoken to them.
Okay. It would just be helpful to know if they see it as a big deal or not a big deal. And that's actually my next question. Has to do with, it's hard for me to know how much traffic uses this intersection. And is there anything about that I should know when we're making this decision, the volume of traffic on Mountain View that's going to be impacted?
I don't know if VTrans, I'm sorry, Tom, you guys may have numbers for what's going on at the intersection. I'm sure you do.
Right, yeah, and I can start to pull up the specifics here, but while, one of the benefits of the direction that we've suggested with, the westbound being detoured and the eastbound basically being maintained on Mountain View Road, is the fact that really it's the traffic that's already kind of in that area of Williston is the one that's being detoured. So you're not really seeing extra traffic being funneled through this area. You're really just seeing the traffic that is already in that area being rerouted onto some of the other town roads. So we have not yet done a detailed traffic analysis. That would be probably one of the more the next steps of looking at some of the intersections. But I can try to bring up some of the specifics of the volumes as well. But
Jeff, I believe that once this thing is up and running, like everything else, the people that are coming up North Williston Road and making the right on the Mountain View Road aren't going to do that and then go up and turn left on the Old Stage Road.
Right.
They're going to stay on North Williston Road and come to that four-way intersection we were just talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
As far as that intersection, we know it's a very busy intersection. Today is a good example. We're cold planing and paving some of the Industrial Ave, and we noticed about as good as we've ever noticed anything. And certainly it didn't seem like it did any good today. Maybe now that they've been out there for a day, people will find another way to go. But it's like everything. It takes a few days to get people to accept that things are actually happening and decide to take a different route.
Okay.
and as far as, just to answer your question, at my fingertips, I don't have exact numbers on Mountain View Road. We could follow up with that information, but there's about 18,000 vehicles that use Route 2A on a daily basis.
And it's more, I'm asking because I just have no ability to evaluate that. And, you might be like, well, when it's under this threshold, it's viewed as acceptable, but when it exceeds another threshold, it's viewed as unacceptable. That might be guidance you want to consider when you're making your decision. But then my last question is you mentioned option two has benefits over option one, smaller easements, and less time going to be required, which I assume means real dollars. Do you have any sense of how much of a cost saving is associated with option two versus option one?
We have not done an analysis to that depth. We could certainly do look at construction costs, but as far as right-of-way costs and the time savings to the contractor, that's not something that we've done at this time.
Okay, and totally understandable. I was more getting at, are you expecting it to be significant, or is it so minor it's not really a factor?
I certainly wouldn't put it at minor.
Okay.
There's definitely some benefits, and certainly some also benefits to the traveling public as far as potential delays there and getting the contractor out of the road and the road opened up, as soon as possible.
Okay. And then my last question is, how soon do you want to know? The reason why I ask how soon do you want to know, if you sit there and say, hey, we need to know ASAP because we're approaching this phase of the project, that's one answer. But if you're like, well, we have some time, it would be helpful maybe to have some of these answers. I suspect option two is going to be my choice, if you will. But I'd feel more comfortable if I had some of the answers to those questions. So I guess the bottom line again is this an answer you're looking for soon, or can it wait a little bit?
We are in the process of working with the private utility companies to discuss relocation routes, particularly with the aerial lines, Green Mountain Power, and Consolidated Communications, for instance. And so we kind of need to know, those talks have already begun, and we're getting ready to start delineating how much right-of-way we need to acquire. So that'll happen probably in September, October. So I would say, we could turn around some additional information for you, but I would say we would probably ask for a response from the select board within a month.
Okay.
Just to make sure that, we go into talking to the utility companies and the private property owners with solid delineation. So we want to make sure that this is fleshed out.
Okay.
Jeff, if you see their original memo, and I'll take some of the blame for this, they wanted us to do this way back at the beginning of June.
Well, I did pick up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, some of that is my own fault, but some of it's just because of everything else that's been going on, and it kept getting pushed. So here we are.
Yep. Okay. Just do other select board members not feel the same, but have that same concern, or do you feel you have enough?
I actually thought I had enough, but if we can put this on for one more meeting and still make our deadline, that wouldn't.
I would agree. I thought I had enough, but these questions that have been raised tonight have got me thinking a little more, and I'd like another run at it.
So our next meeting is in mid-August. I think the 18th is the date of that, and we can make a decision at that time. By that time, you'll have the information to us as well, and that will give you certainly the information you need before September.
That'd be fantastic. We'll provide Bruce with updated information, and we really much appreciate it.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Good. So thank you very much, and we'll be looking forward to having the information and making a decision at our next meeting in August. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
We'll move on then to the Catamount Community Forest Management Plan Addendum. We have three people that are from staff that are going to talk about this, or two people, one person from staff, Linda Scott, the Ethan Tapper, who's the county forester, and Laura Meyer from the Catamount Forest Plan Committee. So whoever is going to start, please do.
And I've got folks connecting right now, Terry. Just be a moment here.
I see a couple anyway. I see all three.
Yeah, and I can get started for you. So, my name's Ethan Tapper. I'm the Chittenden County Forester. I work for the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. And basically, county foresters do a lot of different stuff. Our biggest role is helping private landowners figure out how to manage the private land better. We also have a statutory obligation to help towns manage their town forest. And so I've been doing a lot of work with town forests in the county, helping them use town forests, both to demonstrate really good management and then also helping them manage their forests so that they're healthier, more productive, and able to support broader wildlife habitat benefits and stuff like that. And so what we've brought before you is a forest management plan. So the last forest management plan for the property was written when it was still owned by the McCulloughs as a private parcel in 2009. And 10 years as a standard time frame for when a forest management plan needs new data collected and new management prescriptions written. And so I started this process about a year ago. And the goal for this is not to replace that really comprehensive 2018 management plan that was written for Catamount with that big committee at the big public process. It's just to provide some additional information. So to provide specifics about and data about how we're going to manage the Catamount Community Forest with sort of a specific eye towards forest health and a scientific approach. And so with everything that's in this forest management plan, the way that the real benefit, I think, of town forests is, number one, they're amazing pieces of public land. They have all these different resources. They have significant recreational value and conservation value. I also think that they have significant demonstration and education value. So there's management actions that are prescribed in this forest management plan. Every one of these actions is intended to be accompanied by significant public outreach and engagement. And so I've been demonstrating this approach over the last couple of years at the Heinsberg Town Forest, where I've done active forest management, hosted like 19 public events, got over 500 people to come out and partner up with all different types of conservation organizations, engage with all different types of people, frame these events in all different kinds of ways, hold cultural events as well, with the goal that we are broadening our coalition and helping people understand how forests work, how we can manage them responsibly, our working landscape, et cetera, and really bringing people into that. So everything that's in this plan is accompanied by really extensive demonstration and education, and that's something that's really important to me. There's a couple specific projects that I just want to, this is a comprehensive document. It's like 60 pages long. So there's a lot to it, but just in like a couple of minutes, I want to just talk about a couple projects and issues that are raised to put them on your radar. These are also outlined in the executive memo that you already received from Melinda. And then Melinda and Laura, who's the chair of the Catamount Forest Committee, is gonna speak about a couple other things. So there's two projects that are sort of on the short-term horizon in this forest management plan. The first is a wildlife habitat management project. This is a partnership that has been crafted between Audubon, Vermont, Vermont Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, possibly Velco, to create some young forest habitat and some shrubland habitat specifically for birds. And it's a really exciting opportunity. All this work is funded. It's all funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we're hoping to get some money from Velco possibly, and certainly from Vermont Fish and Wildlife's habitat stamp to expand this work. And we have this, really collaborative approach. This is a short-term project. It'll probably take place over a couple of weeks. It won't impact trail or closures or usage significantly. The other project is scheduled out for hopefully starting next year, would be our goal. And this is the opportunity for Catamount to serve as a demonstration forest to model how we manage forests in light of a changing climate. So how we manage them to be resilient and adaptive as our climate changes. And this is a partnership with UVM. and specifically with Williston residents, Tony D'Amato, who's a forestry professor at UVM and like a nationally renowned forest scholar, and Gary Hawley, who's also from Williston on the Conservation Commission. And what they want to do is basically have us be one of these nationwide network of forests that are being used to demonstrate forest management in light of a changing climate, which is really, really exciting. They'd be collecting all of this really cool and interesting data. A lot of really great and important information would come out of this. It would be an active logging job for about probably a few months on just about 30 acres. So 30 acres out of the 393 acre forest. And we've worked extensively with the Catamount Outdoor Family Center to create a plan for how we're going to manage that. Quickly, other stuff we want to talk about, recreation is really important. So it's our goal to minimize disruption to trail usage and also disruption to physical trails at Catamount. With these activities, some disruption will probably occur. We know that we're going to have to close trails for safety for some period of time. We're hoping to make that as minimal as possible. And probably some trail restoration will need to occur, which we're hoping to fund largely out of the money that we make from this forest management. Recreation is really important. And actually, the impact of our education and demonstration will be compounded by the fact that this property has a lot of eyes on it and a lot of people use it. And so it will get a lot more people to engage with this work that we're doing and ask questions about it and learn about it, which is really, really, I think, a positive asset to the work that we're trying to do. Two more things just really quickly. There is an advanced invasive exotic plant infestation on this property, especially buckthorn, but also a species called Japanese barberry. There are, in some places, 40 or 50,000 stems to the acre of these plants. They're very resilient and difficult to kill, and so we want to apply an integrated pest management approach, which will involve some usage of herbicide. This is a progressive approach. It doesn't involve blanketing the whole landscape with herbicide. It's like a minimal, super targeted application to individual plants. That part of this will be funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife as well. And this is the approach that every conservation organization in Vermont uses. So the Nature Conservancy, Audubon Vermont, Vermont Land Trust, Vermont Fish and Wildlife. This is what we all do because we recognize that the threat to our native biodiversity posed by these invasive exotic plants is extreme, and that we can apply these chemicals safely, and that doing so is actually really progressive because it means that we're actually doing something about the problem in a way that's meaningful, in a way that often other methods are not effective. And then lastly, I mentioned deer. Deer overpopulation is a problem in Chittenden County. That's why the deer hunting rules have been changed as of this year to try and take more antlerless deer and try and lower our deer populations in our state. Hunting is not currently allowed at Catamount, and deer browse impacts to our native regeneration and biodiversity at Catamount are notable and significant. And so I'm not saying in this document, when you adopt it, that hunting is now allowed. I'm saying that we should really try and figure out a way to make it allowed because it's the way that we reduce this population, which is a significant biodiversity threat and ecological problem. So yeah, so that's like the lightning rundown of this incredibly dense document. And Melinda and Laura are going to talk about a couple other aspects of this process.
There you go. Linda, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, so Ethan really did a lot of heavy lifting with regards to drafting this plan and also conducting public outreach. And I think that it really offers a really nice opportunity for the town to do something that I don't believe has ever been done on public lands in Williston. So I think it'd be really exciting. And Laura, are you there? Not sure Laura's here. So I'll talk about the
picture.
Yeah, I see your picture. I can talk about the public engagement piece. Oh, you're here. Okay, go ahead. Take it away.
Engagement. Thank you, Melinda. I, for some reason, thought Eric was going to unmute me, but I had to do it myself. So I just want everyone to know that because the goal of the county forester, Ethan, the Williston Conservation Commission, as well as the Catamount Forest Committee, was to have an open, transparent process and engage the public. We were able to answer a lot of questions, both within our respective committees, as well as because of COVID, we couldn't go on public walks, but we had 2 virtual seminars, and they were about the 2 projects that Ethan had mentioned, one on wildlife habitat and the other on adaptive forest management. And you can view those actually anytime. They're on Ethan's YouTube channel. Many people attended those, and they had a lot of great information about the specifics of some of the things that are in the forest management plan. And the other thing that we did was Kim Coleman, who was chair of the Williston Conservation Commission, worked with Ethan on a survey that was sent out to not only people who had watched the 2 webinars about the projects that are going to be going on at Catamount Forest, but they went out to, the usual methods, Front Porch Forum, Vermont Master Naturalists. And I think because we had been talking for a while to people about some of the things in the management plan, there were most of it was supportive. People want to get rid of invasive plants. So they're supportive of many things in the forest management plan. The one concern was with the trails and damage to the trails at Catamount. The nonprofit Catamount Outdoor Family Center maintains 26 miles of trails, and they Ethan has been working very closely with them and so has Melinda, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page about minimizing damage to the trails, as well as making sure that there are funds to restore those trails. So in a nutshell, the concerns about trails are being addressed, and there are no other concerns that people haven't already asked about and have been in a conversation about. So that's it.
Thank you. I think I saw something about Chapin Keener wanted to comment about this as well.
Yep, I'll get Chapin connected here.
Hi. I just wanted to second what was in Melinda's memo. I want to support the plan. And I did want to make just one comment, or 2 comments actually, about the plan. One is that I didn't see the appendix that had the area map included in the agenda tonight. And it's on the website, and I've, of course, looked at it and studied the plan. So it's a little hard to read the plan without knowing what Area 5 is, for instance. And maybe it's there, but I didn't see it in the agenda. But what I wanted to comment on is that as part of the Vermont Naturalist Program last year, several of us attempted to do some inventorying of the invasives on this property. And a couple of us led a walk for the public to showcase some of the invasives. And they're so prevalent that we really can't, we really have to prioritize our work on them. And the plan doesn't talk a lot about priority, it just says we really need to work on this in all areas. For instance, there's no way we're going to remove all the honeysuckle from the open areas. And Ethan and Melinda will, I'm sure, direct resources very well, but I just wanted to make the comment that I'm assuming that we will be following any cutting areas carefully the year or 2 after the cutting, and working on all the vectors like the trails, the roads, and the power lines to manage to sort of hold them at bay, if you will, and not feel that we failed if we haven't removed all the invasives that are there. That's my comment. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Who's talking?
So I'm sorry, that's me. I just want to, just to respond to Chapin's comment. Yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done, and it's basically limited by funding. So we're going to do as much as we can, and our hope is, especially with that wildlife habitat management work, that we do have this funding, and we're onboarding different partners who have access to different funding sources that will hopefully make that funding go farther, and that will allow us to do more work with the invasives. But the invasives is going to be an ongoing issue for sure. It's a pretty significant infestation. Some of it may be tackleable with volunteers. A lot of it, maybe not so much if it's because it's really advanced. But it's going to be an ongoing thing, and we're probably going to enlist groups like the Williston Master Naturalist to help us monitor it down the road, which Chapin's a part of.
Questions from the board?
This is Laura Meyer. There was a comment. There was a comment about telling the select board about who is funding the restoration of the trails in case of damage. And in the forest management plan, 10,000 is asked to be set aside, and that is from both timber revenue, which is expected, we don't know how much, and also the capital budget. And there's other money available. There's a grant money available in case restoration is costly, but we don't, there's that fear because you don't know, but we don't expect it to be. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and the lease that the town has with the Catamount Outdoor Family Center does stipulate that we will fix trails to the condition that they're in before any work that we do afterwards. And so this is definitely something we want to do. We don't anticipate this being a huge expense, but just to be transparent about that, that's what the lease says. And we're hoping that timber sale revenue will more than cover, so that the revenue that the town accrues from the selling of trees that we're going to cut will more than cover those expenses. And that will have revenue left over to do stuff like invasive species treatment. And we're talking about, I've worked really extensively. So in addition to that survey work, I've also done direct outreach to the Catamount Outdoor Family Center, Kim Stinson, who's the director, and Hans, who's on the board of directors. Also the McCulloughs, because they have such a robust knowledge of the property. And I think we've figured out some strategies for how we're going to deal with this. I've actually mapped out all the trails that we're going to use. And so we have a really, really detailed idea of how this is going to work and how we're going to deal with it to avoid physical and also usage disruption to those trails.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
Jeff here. I think one question that all of us select board members have when we're considering something like this is, to put it bluntly, what does it cost? I understand there's a lot of variables and unknowns, but what does the select board need to know about what is the financial impact of this forest management plan? Whoever can best tackle that?
Yeah, so I can talk about that. So we hope that it will cost nothing and that it will be actually revenue positive, in that it will supplement the Catamount Community Forest budget by, as we do these demonstration forestry projects, even though the generation of revenue is by no means a goal, it's also something that will happen. And so the only chance that any of the projects that are detailed in this forest management plan would dip into the capital fund are for non-commercial stuff like invasive species treatment, which would be, hopefully come out of a dedicated Catamount budget. or grant funding that we're able to acquire, something like that. Or if there was extensive restoration work, which we don't expect there to be following the forest management that we want to do in 2021. But we expect it to be the opposite of that. We want this, one of the really neat things about generating revenue, not as a point, but as a byproduct of the work that we're doing, is that we can spend it on really cool stuff. And our goal would be that all of this timber sale revenue would get refunneled back into the Catamount Community Forest to do stuff like invasive species treatment, wildlife habitat enhancement, stuff like that.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then just a comment. I was involved in some of the discussions as part of the Catamount Community Forest Management Committee because you appointed me to that committee. And one of the things one of my takeaways, I guess, is previously when I thought about the community forest, I always thought about its active uses. What we think of Catamount today, the running, the mountain biking, the cross country skiing, that aspect of it. But what I'm maybe somewhat slowly coming to realize is that's probably not the most important part of the community forest. And this document focuses on that part that's less well known, less visible, but it's actually probably the greater, bigger, more important resource. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that, or.
So we're running.
I think that when we were drafting this, one of the goals is that, that the town acquired this property was an incredible recreational resource and also conservation resource. And the McCulloughs managed it, very well for decades. But I think one of our goals in the drafting of this forest management plan and the management plan that preceded it was that we want to offer even more. So we want it to be even more. We want it to be a hub for these really great recreational opportunities and youth development opportunities that Catamount offers. And then also to be a place where people can learn about the working landscape and responsible forest management and the way that forested ecosystems work and stuff like that, which to me expands the offering so much more. I think that it's really exciting to think about.
Thank you. So we're running into a time where we have another public hearing at 8 o'clock. If the board is comfortable with voting on this tonight, then the motion is in order. If not, then I don't want to postpone this until later on tonight. We could take it up at the next meeting, but it depends on what your comfort level is.
I'm comfortable making a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Please do.
I'd move to adopt the proposed addendum to the Catamount Community Forest Management Plan as recommended by the Conservation Commission and the Catamount Forest Management Committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Is it appropriate for me to second?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Sure.
I say
have a motion made.
Okay.
Yes. As being a member of that commission, yes.
Yes, right.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So is there a discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, then raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. We have done that. Thank you very much. And
great. Thank you.
So thanks for the folks that were on this one. Melinda, we're going to have to postpone you until we get through with the public hearing. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
So let's go to the public hearing document. And hopefully everybody that needs to be on are here, Matt Belanger and Emily Heyman. And so I'll open the public hearing and read the notice. Under the authority of 24 VSA section 4385, the Williston Selectboard will hold the first of 2 public hearings to receive public comment on proposed amendments to the 2016-24 Williston Comprehensive Plan. The hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 28th, 2020, beginning at 8 p.m. virtually using the video conference platform Zoom. And we'll be talking about the energy plan and the public health part of the modifications. So if we could have a very brief explanation of what we're talking about tonight from both Matt and Emily, this would be helpful.
Sure, I'll get us started. Thank you for holding this hearing tonight, select board members. So what's before the select board this evening is a draft energy plan proposed for consideration as an appendix and amendment to the Williston Comprehensive Plan. That energy plan is intended to comply with.
Could I interrupt for a second, Matt? I'm having a little difficulty hearing you. Is anybody else? Is it?
I can hear all right. Anybody else?
It's just a little quiet.
Which is unusual for him.
Adjust my microphone a little bit. Let me see if this helps.
Kind of break it up a little bit.
I turned my volume up.
I'm going to see if I can stabilize my connection a little better. One second.
Sometimes taking video off helps as well.
I'll do that as well. So let me proceed and just let me know if this is continuing to break up as I work to fix this connection. So this is a proposed appendix to an amendment to the Williston Comprehensive Plan. It is the standalone energy document that is required under state law to give the state some deference in the Public Utility Commission process as it relates to the siting of renewable energy facilities. And in order to do that, the town needs to adopt an amendment to its comprehensive plan called the Energy Plan that also accounts for the town's ability to reduce carbon emissions and provide for adequate renewable energy generation within the town's boundaries. So these are what are called the siting policies that are located there as well. This hearing is also about considering amendments throughout the town plan that are related to the public health aspects of comprehensive planning in Williston. And you have a summary table for you that is meant to cover those things.
Thank you. Emily, anything to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then we can open up the floor to comments and questions from the public, since this is a public hearing. And Eric, are there folks on the line?
Yep, I've got three folks who notified me before the meeting. And folks, if you would like to make a comment, please just let me know in the chat and we'll get to everybody here. I'll let you know before I unmute you. So first I have Kaylin McCamp. Kaylin, I'll unmute you momentarily here.
Hi there, this is Kaylin McCamp. So I wanted to just give a brief update on the letter of signatures that we had in support of adopting the energy plan. This was put together by Sustainable Williston and put out on Front Porch Forum for anyone who wanted to sign. So when we sent it to you, we had 71, and now we have 93 signatures. And I'll just quickly read what the letter says. It's short. Dear Williston Selectboard members, we, the undersigned residents of Williston, support the adoption of the proposed energy plan into the town plan. Additionally, we support the hiring of a Williston-specific energy coordinator to implement it and make it a reality. We are excited about the opportunity for us as a community to take this concrete step towards a more sustainable and resilient future for Williston. Sincerely, the undersigned. And I just put it in the chat, the link that shows the updated 93 signatures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Brian Forrest. Brian is the town's volunteer energy coordinator, and he chaired the energy plan task force who worked for the planning commission to start this process a couple of years ago. Brian, I'll get you connected in just a moment. Hi, Brian, are you there?
Yes.
Yep, you can go ahead. You're on with the board.
All right. Good evening, and thank you for holding this public hearing. Eric has kind of introduced me. I'm a town energy coordinator and chairman of the task force that drafted this plan, so it will come as no surprise that I support this plan. I'll give you some reasons. At this moment, we are going through a serious societal crisis. The first is holding our country accountable for 150 years of racial injustice. The second is a pandemic that has to date taken the lives of over 150,000 Americans. The third is the climate crisis that threatens the future of mankind. As a town, we have to deal with all three. You have for your review an energy plan designed to begin addressing the contribution Williston has made to this climate crisis. To prepare us for a future where we have moved away from fossil fuels, lower the amount of energy we need and use and pay for, and have a local environmentally safe source of that energy. This plan will require funds to accomplish this and may take a few years to set into motion. We as a species are hardwired to face the most imminent danger first, postponing addressing future dangers. The problem with the climate crisis is that when we actually feel threatened by the crisis, it will be beyond the point where we're able to do anything about it. We must also remember that while COVID-19 has a mortality rate of somewhere between 2 and 4%, the effects of runaway heating of the planet will result in extinction of life as we know it. From the introduction to the plan, August 2018 report of the International Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, states that we must switch from fossil fuels to renewables, non-carbon-based energy sources by 2030 to avoid a 1.5 degree increase in global temperatures, a change which is projected to cause catastrophic risks to human systems. This timetable leaves very little time to get this done. While addressing Williston's contribution to this crisis will not by itself solve the climate crisis, we'll begin to address what we as a town are responsible for. We'll show that we care enough about this threat to our children that we will act to protect them. Are we going to do nothing when we're told we must act? Are we going to tell our children that it is too expensive to preserve their future? Are we as a town believe the world scientists, or we are going to hope the warnings are not true? I ask you to work in the best interests of all our residents, especially those who cannot now vote, yet will be affected by the passing or not passing of this plan. We've already squandered 2 years since the IPCC wrote their report. Time is running out for us to act. We need climate action now. If climate action delayed, is climate crisis denied? As John Lewis said, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Please pass this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Marcy Koss. Marcy, rather. I'll have you unmute here in just a moment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this public forum in support of adopting the proposed energy plan. I also want to, I've already congratulated Eric, but I wanted to say, Rick, is this your last select board meeting?
Yes, it is.
I just want to say thanks and I wish you well.
Thank you.
So I was at the last select board meeting when this energy plan was introduced. I think the first question the select board asked, Jeff asked, was, are there any other towns who've hired an energy coordinator? A good question. When I Googled that question nationally, I found someone who said, that's the first question everyone asks. Who else is doing this? How are they doing it? Switching to renewable energy. Though I did find lots of cities and towns across America who are committing to 100% renewable energy. One article said over 160 cities. I can send you the links if you like. There are still not so many that we can just fall into line beside them with a clear outline of how to go about breaking our civilization-wide habit of reliance on fossil fuels. And that's why I believe hiring an energy consultant is so important. It will save us money and set us on a smart path, not just a brighter path, a smart path. I want to say I'm grateful to the people who've worked on this plan for bringing it to this point. I'm glad to know that there's income sensitivity as an integral part. Also, I'm proud to live in Williston, where we're talking seriously about turning our hopes and dreams into reality. There will be, many details to be worked out in this plan, but I believe that going ahead with it, with breaking away from our reliance on fossil fuels, is the most important thing we can do in our lifetime. If I listen, I can hear future generations cheering us on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other folks on the line?
Yep. Well, next we have Leslie Allen, and I believe comments were submitted to the board by Leslie earlier. You have that in your packet. Leslie, I'm going to unmute you right now. Leslie, just need to unmute.
Unmute. Okay, am I on?
Yep, there you go.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the right button to push. So I sent you guys a note that said this thing is wrong because the fundamentals of the science underneath it is incorrect and invalid. And I also sent you a second note with some backup references, and I wanted to follow up to make sure that you understood what I was saying and give you an opportunity to ask me any questions. Obviously, this is a big hoax that perpetuated by the UN, and it's been going on for a long time. And so the actual data, the actual information of what the temperature on the globe is doing is not what the UN is saying to everybody. And so there's some political motivations behind this, and it's been termed by some people as the most successful hoax ever perpetrated on mankind. And I guess I would agree with that. So what is actually being measured is a significantly lower rate, and it's likely that this is part of a natural cycle. And as many books have been written by many scientists, that support all of those arguments that don't get the public visibility that people who are alarmist have been getting and have been influencing people policies which are fundamentally detrimental. And in this particular case, we would be spending money for no purpose, for no benefit. We're not going to make any changes to the world global temperatures. The United States wouldn't make any difference if the Chinese keep doing what they're doing and the Indians do what they're doing. So the UN has totally forgiven them, not allowing them to participate or not requiring them to participate. So it's really a fundamental desire to transfer funds globally from a prosperous nation like us. And so we are being, I hate to say the word, but duped into doing things which are detrimental to ourselves and will have no prospects of fundamentally helping us. As I showed in my letter to you, it would be at least 100 years from now before we ever reach the 1.5 degrees. And we don't really know that 1.5 degrees centigrade is in fact detrimental. The plus sides of what would happen if we have more carbon dioxide and a little more temperature would really do. is being exaggerated. So can I ask you what you think of what I've said to you and what questions you might have?
This is the opportunity for everybody to comment on whether they believe about global warming or not. And we thank you for the opportunity to listen to your comments.
I didn't ask, and I didn't hear that well. My hearing isn't that good. Was that a question to me?
No, we're just saying that this is your opportunity to make the comments that you did. And I don't think this is the board's opportunity to ask questions of the people who have opinions.
I'm not sure. You're waiting for me to ask questions, or?
No, you just made your comments, and we appreciate that.
Okay.
So let's see. Next, I've had one comment that was asked to be read from the chat, and then we'll go to Danielle. Comment from Deborah. I would like to share my 13-year-old son's comment on why we need an energy plan. And quote, I support this because I know that climate change will cause the next mass extinction on this planet if left unchecked, and I will be alive for that. This plan will help change that, end quote. I would appreciate this comment being shared publicly during the meeting. Thank you for your consideration, Deborah. And next we have Danielle Duquette. Danielle, one moment, I'll get you connected.
All right, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. I'm here tonight with, for both of the plans that you are adopting, the Catamount Community Forest Management Plan and this Conservation Commission's proposed energy plan. In support of both, I see these plans as working towards the same goal of making Williston an even more wonderful and sustainable place to live. I appreciate the efforts that have been made to thinking about how to use the forest sustainably and the thoughts that have been put into the pathways for making our town a leader in these actionable steps that the state already adopted in the 2016 Comprehensive Energy Plan. I mean, the state's already decided that we want to be 90% renewable by 2050. To address the previous caller's comments about the question of climate change, I mean, I think we're just trying to put into motion right now what the state wants to have happen. So I think time is of the essence and we need to act now. And I also want to quote my 11-year-old son Jack, who says he looks forward to having a town powered by renewable energies. And I hear that 100%. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next I have Kimberly. Kimberly, one moment and I'll connect you.
Very good. I'm Kim Horning-Marcy, and I'm very excited about your proposals. And I did some research on my own. Your Energy Commission may be way ahead of me, but I figured out that the town of Hartford, Vermont, which is about the same size as Williston, has had an energy coordinator for 3 years. And he sent me charts of what his activities saved the town. In 2018, they saved $31,285. But in addition to that, ongoing savings. So every year forward from the actions that he helped institute, they will save $26,066 every year going forward. And in 2019, he saved the town $46,967, and going forward, $9,033 in annual ongoing savings. But he was very articulate in sharing how he feels that his role is way more than just cost savings, because he enabled 182 people to participate in weatherization events. He has coordinated condo associations, which is a big part of their housing to get together and go solar along with the Vermont Law School. They now have one Nissan Leaf in the staff, town staff fleet, and they're developing net zero building standards for new construction. They are doing an awful lot of things, including, he said, able to communicate directly with the state government such that the state government hears directly about local needs and can address those more clearly. So I thought, here's a town of similar size, and they've reaped a huge number of benefits, and I am very proud that Williston is also looking to get on top of the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Kevin. One moment, Kevin. I'll get you connected.
Thank you, Eric. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kevin Thorley. I'm a Williston resident, and I would like to speak in favor of the energy plan. I certainly agree with all the comments made previously around the need to take meaningful steps in addressing climate change. I also want to call out some other aspects of the energy plan that, in general, make Williston a better place to live, including providing better transportation options as opposed to requiring automobile access and ability to drive for all of our residents, opening the town up to more public transportation, as well as the self-sufficiency and economic benefits that come from embracing renewable energy. My wife and I moved to Williston about 6.5 years ago. We've had solar panels since we moved here 6 years ago. We've been driving electric vehicles for 3 years. We just finished our first winter on electric heat pumps. And that feeling of self-sufficiency and the associated economic benefits of that are something that I think should be enjoyed by more Williston residents. And I believe the energy plan will help move that forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's everyone I had on my list, Terry. I've just made a last request to the chat to see if anyone else wants to comment. And we could, if you want to give that a couple of moments. We have a Reed Parker. Reed served on the Energy Task Force.
Okay, good evening. This is Reed Parker. I served on the Energy Task Force along with Brian and the other members for the year or so that we worked on this plan.
I read your connection isn't very great right now.
Yeah, okay, hold on, please.
Yep.
That help at all?
Not really.
All right, then I'll have to send you my comments in writing, Eric. Okay.
Okay. If you want to, you could call in as well, and I could connect you over the phone if that's a better option than the.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll send you a comment, but I don't have a way of improving on this connection. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Reed.
Thank you. Emails are fine.
One more, Lynn Blevins. We'll connect you right now, Lynn. Lynn, there you go.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'd just like to make some connections between the two topics of energy and public health, since both are on the agenda tonight. So scientists overwhelmingly agree that the planet is warming and weather patterns are changing even faster than anticipated, especially at the poles. This not only impacts animals and the environment, but also human health. The health effects of climate change include vector-borne diseases, heat stress, allergies, foodborne illness, worsening of chronic conditions, and injury from weather events like floods. We are already seeing these signs right here in Vermont. We all know someone with Lyme disease, and now anaplasmosis is on our heels. So the energy plan not only would save the town money over time and reduce fossil fuels, but also help improve human health. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry, I don't have anyone else looking to make a comment at this time.
Are there any questions from the board or comments from the board before we close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry, I spoke too soon. Chapin Kaner would like to make a comment.
Let's have Chapin.
Hi. Really quickly, I hope we answered the questions you had last time in the memo that the planning staff and G. Miller and I put together. And I just wanted to emphasize that this is sort of a 30-year plan. You know, it's trying to reach a goal for 2050. And when we got into some of the details, in the transmittal memo, we highlighted for you that there were some areas that we thought needed more work, but that we didn't think we should hold up the whole plan while we work on those. And so I just want you to know that the Planning Commission is unanimous in supporting the plan as it is, and especially in the idea of having an energy coordinator be hired by the town to further the plan and to find sources of funding to implement it more efficiently. So any sort of differences of opinion on the Planning Commission were about details of some of the pathways that we felt we should work out in the future. And I just wanted to highlight that. And I'm speaking as the chairman of the Planning Commission. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comments from the people out there?
Nothing I can see at this time.
So, questions from the board or comments from the board?
I would say that I read this page after page. I read the whole thing. I think it is a good document. There are some aspects of it that I think could be reworked and evolved with over time. There is some wording that makes it sound like there'd be a mandatory requirement. But that being said, this is the town plan. It is a set of goals. It's important. It's not to be ignored, but it also can be modified through its implementation in ordinances and zoning and budgeting. So I looked at it in great detail, because when I first saw it, I was actually a little concerned that this was going to bring us into a set of obligations that were going to be a lot more than I had anticipated. But as I began to look at it, I think it's flexible and it makes a lot of sense. That's all I wanted to say.
Like I said, any further board comments, Jeff?
Well, first of all, well said, Ted. Thank you. I guess my only question, comment is has to do with the energy coordinator position and what are the liabilities if that is not something that the town can move ahead on in the near future. We're heading into a uncertain period of however you say it. The economy is going to be uncertain for a while. And I just do not at all want to commit to we can make this a priority in the next budget season. So what is the impact if that cannot happen?
Sure, I can attempt to take that. And can I just ask, is my microphone any better than it was before?
Much better.
Terrific. Thank you. Before I start talking any more than that, I think, Jeff, in partial answer to your question, I direct you and the board to the memo from our staff and Planning Commission members that was prepared following your introductory meeting on the subject, which includes a couple of different implementation timelines and options that kind of anticipate the idea that it may be a challenge to hire an energy coordinator as quickly as the plan would like that to happen. So, we spent some time in preparing that memo thinking about how much of this plan can you implement without having that person in that position. There's clearly an impact on the speed and the scope of implementation, depending on whether or when and how that person can be hired. But in our analysis of the plan and the pathways that it contains, we feel that the town can achieve the goals necessary for compliance with statute and necessary for it to retain preferred siting policy influence in the Public Utility Commission process through the kinds of things that the town can do within its sort of day-to-day planning and operations that this plan calls for. There are ways the town can pursue some of the things that an energy coordinator might do, right away without hiring that person. It's just a question of capacity and how we allocate our time and pardon the pun, energy. But we have a limited budget in money. We have a limited budget in time, and certainly there are some things that we can and would plan on going after right away, regardless of a staffing capacity decision that is necessarily also a budget decision. So I'd especially direct you to that memo and those couple of timelines. Those are very rough. There are a lot of options in between and outside of those two prospective timelines, but there are ways for the town to move on the plan outside of that coordinator position. I will close by saying I think it's also true that places who have hired a coordinator, like Hartford, have demonstrated the utility of doing so, in particular in the ability to pursue grants and coordinate diverse parties on energy efforts.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions from the board? Anyone else on the comment list?
I would like to follow up on the energy coordinator thing. I know Kimberly went into great detail about what Hartford has done. I will note that Brattleboro has a sustainability coordinator, South Burlington has an energy projects manager, and Two Rivers RPC is working on an intermunicipal regional energy coordinator. So, like Chapin said, this is a 30-year plan. Given our current status, at hiring an energy coordinator immediately might not happen, but there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that the town can consider in the future. The plan is set out with pathway 1.1 as hire that energy coordinator and 1.2 as that energy committee. I would almost think about it as those flipped. Establish that energy committee. There's several throughout the state. Many municipalities have that energy committee of volunteers, and they can help look at what all the opportunities are, what the employment mechanisms would be, whether it would be jointly with neighboring municipalities through an RPC, Vista. There's so many tools in the toolbox, and a volunteer energy committee could provide recommendations with existing town staff to the select board at a future date. So I think having that language in the comp plan doesn't commit the select board immediately, but it sets that momentum forward to figure out a thoughtful way of, if that person is hired, doing it thoughtfully.
Thank you. Helpful.
And I would just add, Jeff, to your question, that this is a comprehensive plan, a policy planning document, and it's not a budgetary document. So anything for an allocation would need to take place during a fiscal year budgeting process. And as Emily addressed, there could be different tools and resource configurations available to accomplish these goals to look at moving forward.
Good. Thank you.
If there's no one else on the comment list, then it would be time to have a motion to close the public hearing.
Would move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion of the motion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Got a question? Raise your hand, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The public hearing is closed, and we will have a second public hearing probably in August. So we'll move backwards to the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant with Melinda.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I've got Melinda reconnecting right now.
Okay.
Almost our whole planning department here.
Hello again, everyone.
Welcome back.
So if you'll recall, back in February of 2019, the town was awarded a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant of $280,000 for the purchase of Catamount Community Forest. $200,000 would reimburse the town's ERF fund. $60,000 would reimburse the Trust for Public Lands capital contribution towards the acquisition, and $20,000 would be used as a stewardship endowment for the Catamount Community Forest. So this grant is administered by the U.S. National Park Service through the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. Because it's a federal grant, the Land and Water Conservation Grant is subject to the requirements of the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106 review process. And what that means is that provides a process whereby any potential impacts to historic and archaeological resources can be evaluated and potentially mitigated. Because the Catamount Community Forest property has been identified as archaeologically sensitive and contains historic archaeological sites, the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation has an interest in the protection of those resources. So there has been a substantial delay in the execution of this grant as the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation sought to negotiate an agreement with the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation regarding the protection of the property's historic and archaeological resources. In order to satisfy the DHP's concerns, the Land and Water Conservation Grant includes special conditions that are related to protection of archaeological and historic resources. I'm not going to read out the entire text of those conditions, but merely summarize them as that for 3 years after signing the grant, if the town chooses to accept the grant, if the town wants to engage or conduct in any activities that will disturb the ground, those activities are subject to Section 106 review and will require some level of archaeological assessment and review. There is some uncertainty about exactly what these requirements will entail and also what constitutes ground disturbing activities. I can say that after a conversation this morning with FPR staff person Jessica Savage, I have a little more clarification on what ground disturbing activities are, and basically it's just about anything. Certainly the development of new trails, putting up a new building, the installation of signposts, and including forest management that occurs outside of the winter months. So all of the, the great forest management, proposed forest management that Ethan talked about previously, some of that would occur outside of winter months and would be subject to some level of review. It's also possible, though unlikely, that routine trail maintenance is also subject to these requirements. So there's uncertainty about that, and it's also not possible to determine what level of review and what the associated costs will be for anything the town wants to do on the property during the next 3 years. But there's a process that needs to be followed. It doesn't mean the town wouldn't be able to do any of these activities, but we would need to follow a process which would involve notifying the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recs and them notifying the Vermont SHPO office and us all having a meeting and discussing what would be required. So it's important also to note that the property is currently also under Act 250 jurisdiction, which means that most of the activities that I've listed would also require an Act 250 permit. And this would provide another avenue for the SHPO office to require evaluation of archaeological resources and studies and whatnot. And Act 250 permit lasts forever. It's on the property forever, unlike the grant condition, which would only last for the next 3 years. So the main restriction that's imposed by the grant condition that's not now imposed by Act 250 is forest management. And so I think at the least, we would need to meet with the SHPO office and discuss all this and figure out what they would require. The worst case scenario is that we would have to put off some of these forest management activities for 3 years. So I think I have provided some options for the select board in considering this grant. And so you could either decide to accept it and take our chances regarding the unknowns around the special conditions. If you decide not to accept the Land and Water Conservation Grant, it means that the town would not be reimbursed for the $200,000 we spent for the acquisition, and the town would need to pay back $60,000 to the Trust for Public Land. And then the third option, I'd say, given the fact that I obtained more information, and I think we have obtained as much information as we're going to get about the grant prior to actually signing it and having discussions with the SHPO office. So I will leave it at that and entertain questions.
Questions for Melinda?
Melinda, this is essentially the Act 250 already has jurisdiction over this, and any difficulties that accepting this money would bring are, a lot of them are already already there with the Act 250 permit and the hoops we have to jump through for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the net on this is that we either say no and don't get $200,000, but instead trade that for giving $60,000 back, or we take the $200,000 and we don't have to pay the $60,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
And all because the stuff that we don't know about is only going to be on the land for 3 years, and most of it is probably going to be covered by the Act 250 permit anyway, or at least the topic will be.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had for questions. Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I guess my question, Melinda, and it's sort of along the same lines, is it seems like these are pretty hefty conditions that come with a grant. On the other hand, there are pretty hefty conditions that also come with Act 250. It sure seems like it would be I don't know what the right word is. I'm going to use the word shame to not accept a $280,000 grant. But it's hard for me to evaluate, which is worse, the medicine or the, type of thing. I'm definitely not in favor of your second bullet in terms of option. 1 or 3 is my preference. 1 would be my preference, but I'm not so sure I'm comfortable. One sort of technical question I guess I have is, this focuses on the National Historic Preservation Act. I, through my work, deal with federal grants, whole different program, and they quite often come with NEPA requirements into which historic preservation is folded. I just want to be clear. Are we talking historic preservation here only, or is NEPA also involved? Or do you know?
This is historic preservation only.
Okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
from the town's perspective.
Right. I mean, I think, so in this case, the Department of Forest, Vermont Forest Parks and Recs is the grantee. They're accepting the grant from the National Park Service, and then they distribute the grant to sub-grantees.
Yeah.
We are one of those. They may have undergone, or they probably had to undergo a categorical exclusion process as far as the NEPA requirement goes. But that we didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. And out of that exclusion might have come any National Historic Preservation aspects would be dealt with on a project by project basis.
Mm-hmm.
So that part wasn't excluded. Okay. That makes sense. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts? I would recommend accepting the grant and just dealing with the conditions for the next 3 years. I mean, 3 years is going to go by really fast, and it's already been, believe it or not, nearly a year and a half since we acquired the Catamount property. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
In dealing with the SHPO office, with my committee in the legislature, they're really pretty easy to deal with. There are certainly certain requirements that they can't ignore, but interested when we were dealing with some supposedly historic buildings on the old Windsor prison site. They said, yeah, they're historic, but you can tear them down. They're not significant. So, so I think we'd be better off taking the first option.
Yeah. The one thing I will point out about the trouble, I'm sorry. The trouble with a piece of land like this is the resources are so diffuse, if I use that word correctly, across the landscape versus historic buildings where the boundaries are pretty well known. That's always going to be the difficulty here. But I'm agreeing with Terry. I think we should. It's hard for me to envision the cost is going to exceed the grant dollars we're getting. In fact, I think the grant dollars we're getting will well exceed the potential cost to the town. And I guess I'm looking to Melinda to see if that.
Yeah,
I may be eating my words.
I mean, I think the town has choices about what it decides to do on the land, and you know, if the town felt that the requirements were unreasonable,
do nothing.
Yeah, or. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that they're going to be reasonable, but you never know. And I don't know.
We have had mostly good success working with SHPO, but there has been a couple of, I want to be politically correct here, a couple times in which the issues were significant.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no more questions or comments, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'd move to authorize the town manager to sign the grant agreement with the Vermont Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation for a grant amounting to $280,000 for the Catamount Community Forest.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, then raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Thank you. And we have one last thing for Belinda, and that's the VAST agreement, which I think should go quickly.
Okay.
Melinda, any?
Oh, sorry. I lost you there. Yeah, so this is really straightforward. The use of public lands agreement has been in place for several years with the local VAST chapter, Williston Hillhawks, and that allows them to have their snowmobile trails through town-owned public lands. And the agreement has not changed for the last few years. We haven't had any reported issues with snowmobiling. Bruce Hoare, Director of Public Works, he has not requested any changes. The Conservation Commission is okay with the agreement. BAST is okay with the agreement. So we're recommending that that the town accept the agreement as written.
Any questions from Melinda on this? If not, I'd be looking for a motion for this as well. You're muted, Ted. You're on mute, Ted.
My apologies. I would move to approve the use of public lands by the Williston Hillhawks and the Vermont Association of Snow Travelers, and to authorize the town manager to sign the agreement for the 2020 to 2021 season.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Thank you very much, Melinda. Appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is the collector of delinquent taxes appointment. I have a letter of resignation from Rick McGuire, effective August 1st, 2020. It's a one-liner.
Well, yeah, Terry, I was prepared to give a PowerPoint presentation on this, but I figured a one-liner would be sufficient to cover the topic.
Yeah. So I'd be looking for a motion here as well.
I'll move to appoint Eric Wells as collector of delinquent taxes effective August 3rd, 2020.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
What the heck we're gonna?
Rick has emulated President Richard Nixon, his one-liner resigning the presidency. I hereby resign the office of presidency. So got that going for you.
Very good. So we have motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise their hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Moving right along then to the manager's report.
That would be me, at least for tonight. I don't, maybe I should let Eric go first. I don't have anything to report on beyond what is in writing, other than to say, I guess I will mention this. It's my last meeting, and I want to thank the board and the current board members and the past board members, of course, for the opportunity to serve this great community. It's been a tremendous honor. And of course, there's a tremendous number of volunteers that have contributed over the community throughout the time period I've been as manager. And they've added so much to the quality of life here in Williston. And I would also want to thank the town employees. Most of the time, they made me look good. And with that, I'll turn it over to Eric if he wants to report on anything else.
Thanks, Rick. And I just want to publicly recognize your service and dedication to Williston the last 22 and a half years. You've done a tremendous job of being an outstanding mentor to me, and really want to wish you the best in retirement moving ahead here. For the manager's report this evening, and not a whole lot additional to report, I just want to update the board on the fire chief hiring process. We will be conducting our final interviews with 2 finalists this coming week. We look to hopefully have a decision made in the short term, and I'll update the board on that process as we move ahead here. We had the first round 2 weeks ago, and we interviewed 4 semifinalists, and we'll keep moving this right along. And that's all I have to report this evening.
Before we move off of the manager's report, yesterday I sent an email to the select board looking to celebrate Rick's pending retirement and offering the opportunity to say a few words. Congratulations to Rick and other things that you may wish to share with him. So whoever would like to start, I'd appreciate it. Jeff?
Well, also, I don't really know what to say, Rick. And probably the best way I can express, my feelings is I've been on the select board for almost all of the term you've been the town manager. And I know a big reason why I have stayed on the select board and have enjoyed it and continued to learn and benefit from being on the select board is because of you. And so I want to thank you. Maybe I don't know better, but I don't think that's the case. You did a great job. I like what you said at the end of your little thing there. It's been a great run. I couldn't agree more. Best wishes.
Thank you, Jeff.
Ed?
Rick, the only thing I would add to that is just a couple quick thoughts. The job that you did, the professionalism that you exhibited, and the character of your person made being on the select board made it, for me anyway, feel safe. It made me feel like there was somebody who knew what they were doing and knew how all the pieces fit together. The amount of difficulty that goes on a town with the nuts and bolts of running it is massive, and people don't appreciate it and they don't understand it. I remember listening to my father once talking about a political thing, and he said that the sitting governor was not going to beat the sitting U.S. senator because governors actually have to make decisions, and when they make decisions, they bother people. I think that's true with town manager, that you have to make decisions, and you have done that with wisdom, you have done that with class, and you have done that with courage. And I cannot sing your praises high enough. You are the reason, among others, but one of the chief reasons why the town has done as well as it has done. And you will be very, very missed. Eric will do a great job, but everybody's individual. And that being said, I do kind of envy you to go on to new challenges and new horizons, and maybe relax a little bit. But the last thing I'd say is thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ted.
Gordon?
Well, Rick, it's the rookie out of the bullpen, so to speak. As you know, I'm an active listener, but I want to thank you for taking the time, which I know that you have with probably anybody that's been on any board or with any department in the town. You go the extra mile. This is new for me. I'm learning every meeting, not that I've accomplished a lot on the learning curve, because I'm still learning. But anytime I visit the town office, you make time for me. You ask opinions of others. You gather information. You make sound decisions on things that you have to make a tough call on at times, that I've seen already in my short time here on the select board. I think the town has been extremely lucky to have you at the helm for the last 22 and a half years. Your service is
We lost you. We lost you, Gordon. I think he's frozen up.
Yeah.
Am I back?
Yeah,
Yes.
you are now. Yep.
Okay. I'll finish up. As I said, I've talked to many select board members, not only on current board, but before.
You're frozen up again, Gordon.
Service, and I wish you the best in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks, Gordon.
And finally, they say in real estate, it's location, location, location. But for Rick, it's been integrity, integrity, integrity. He's come forward with innovative ideas for the select board to consider to solve very thorny problems over the course of the years. I've been fortunate to serve on the board for about 18 years now and enjoyed almost every minute of it, and especially with having Rick as the town manager. He's well known among his peers and well respected. We have seen him appointed to many things in the county and other places as far as being this town manager. And you think about over the course of 22 and a half years, the number of meetings like this that he's had to come to because that's part of the job. And after 22 and a half years, that's got to amount to about 3,000 hours that we expected him to be at, and just as part of the job. So thank you very much for all of that. It will be a continuing celebration on Monday night, on Monday afternoon. And I wish we were able to do a cutting of the cake, which we have done in the past for select board members. But at this time, I'd ask the select board to rise and give Rick a standing ovation.
If I can say one more thing, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you all for your kind thoughts. Getting a little emotional here. I will continue to offer the town my assistance as we transition. I know Eric's taking over on Monday, but I'm just a phone call away or a Zoom call away, or in some cases, a short walk away. And so I will continue to provide assistance where I can. But I know the town is in good hands with the current board members and, of course, the current staff, including Eric. And I know he'll do a fine job for the town. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. For some reason, I keep on losing my earpieces. So other business, the one thing that was recommended last meeting was to discuss the possibility of further discussion of mandated masks because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that issue has been resolved with the governor's mandate, that a statewide mandate for wearing masks. So I think we're have nothing further to discuss on that unless there's other opinions.
No, I agree.
And is there any other business other than the last item on the agenda to discuss tonight? Hearing none, then we have the town manager contract for Eric. And as we discussed at our last meeting when 4 of us were here, you gave the chair direction on going forth and finalizing a contract with Eric. I'm happy to report that the directions I received were done and carried out, and we have an agreement between Eric and myself at this time. So if there's any questions regarding this, I don't believe we need to have an executive session, and that we have a proposal for you that has been negotiated. And I'd be looking, if there's no questions, then I'd be looking for a motion.
How detailed a motion does it have to be?
There's one, I believe, recommended that to approve the contract and have authorized the chair to sign it.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second? And seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'm pretty sure Eric is going to want a more formal motion than that.
It's not a written contract.
That's perfectly fine.
Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, raising hands, 2, 3, dead, 4. So we have approved that, and hearing no other business tonight, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night, all.
Good night.